I want to talk a little bit about the meeting that we had of the Safe Reopening Task Force and the board last Thursday. But first, maybe to set some context, let me share the screen showing the COVID situation in San Diego County at the moment. So here we are. This was updated a couple days ago. I think they did not update it Saturday or Sunday. But you notice that our case rate in San Diego County is about 200 people, new cases each day per 100,000 residents. That is not quite twice as high as the daily new case rate was at the worst of the pandemic before vaccinations were developed, before the vaccines were developed. So we are in an extraordinary time right now. And that is informing some of the decisions that we have made. And I understand that some people gather information and prefer to see things in different ways. So again, I will share a screen with some information. I'll be speaking as well. I'm going to give a brief overview of what the task force and the board talked about and some of the protocols that we have put in place. And the first thing to keep in mind is that things are very fluid. It has always been that way, and it continues to be that way. We have a new variant. Governments are changing what they're requiring. Sometimes we're getting masking requirements, and sometimes cities are saying, no, we don't want to do that. So there's changing government responses. Lots of things are changing. And as Mary mentioned, since Omicron is so transmissible, and because the case rates are so astronomically high, Joni, Barbara, and I are not in the sanctuary today. We had been running our services from the sanctuary, but it did not seem reasonable for more people to be there. With just Patrick and Mary there, they're on opposite sides of the room, and they are masked except when Mary is speaking. So our Safe Reopening Task Force and the Board of Directors are both working to adapt our policies when necessary as things change. And the information I'm going to be giving you is current as of last Thursday when we met. So any responses we have to COVID and how our policies are developed for COVID, they all must take into account three things: the effects on individuals, the effects on the summit community, and the effects on the wider community. And maybe to help make that a little more clear, let's look at an example. Suppose we were having hybrid services and we had people in the sanctuary and someone in the sanctuary had a poorly fitting mask. Then the effect on an individual, the effect on that individual would be that they have a higher risk of becoming sick if someone else in the room has COVID. The effect for the summit community is that the people sitting near that person have a higher risk of becoming sick if that person was infected. And the effect on the wider community is that if anyone is getting sick and needs to be hospitalized, then that puts a burden on the local hospitals whose emergency rooms are already starting to fill up. So those are the three aspects that we need to keep in mind when we're developing our policies. So currently, Summit's COVID protocols include, first of all, canceling indoor gatherings if the county risk level is too high. Second, air filtration in Summit spaces. Third, masking at all gatherings, indoor and outdoor. And fourth, a vaccination requirement for indoor gatherings. And I'll talk about each of these in turn. So first, canceling indoor events if the risk is too high. This is something that we're going to have to look at week by week. No matter what, every Sunday service will be available online, streaming either through Zoom or through YouTube when we get that set up. If the COVID Act Now website that we just looked at shows a very high or extreme risk level in San Diego County, we will not have people in person in the sanctuary. Depending on the level, we might have the worship team in the sanctuary, but there will not be congregants in the sanctuary. What you just saw on the COVID Act Now website was the risk level being at the very highest point it's ever been in the extreme category. But over the past 6 months, there have been significant periods of time when the risk has been below those categories. We will also take into account the local case rate in East County, because East County has a lower vaccination rate and often has had a higher case rate than the rest of the county. So we'll factor that in as well. And decisions about whether we will have any in-person component for the Sunday service, those decisions will be made the preceding Wednesday evening. They will be communicated in the e-news and in the weekly service announcement. And just so you know, these guidelines are they match what the UUA is recommending. Air filtration. So COVID is spread primarily through aerosols and droplets, and personal mask wearing helps prevent transmission, but we also have a communal responsibility to make our indoor spaces safer. So therefore, we have installed air filtration units in the sanctuary. You may have seen them a couple weeks ago when we turned the camera around in the sanctuary so you could see what things looked like. And we are ordering additional units to put in the sanctuary, in the RE rooms, and in other spaces on the Summit campus. So that's kind of our communal response to the air filtration situation. But there are personal things you can do as well. Masking. The Omicron variant requires better masks than most of us have been using. It is highly contagious, as you could see from the chart that I showed earlier. Cloth masks generally are not good enough. Surgical masks, they're better than cloth masks, but they are generally not good enough to protect us from Omicron. So if you can get an N95 mask, a KN95 mask, or a KF94 masks, they are all pretty good, only if they fit well. And I need to mention this is something that is an issue for me. I have a beard, it's not very long, but that affects the seal of the mask around my face. So I am considering what I can do to, I don't know, get rid of the mutton chops. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I'm going to be working on larger masks and seeing if I can get something that will work. I've seen people in the grocery store like with full Santa Claus beards with like a little cloth thing that is 4 inches from their mouth because their beard is so big. So, you know, that's something to consider when you're looking at masks. And as a reminder, the masks are protection both for yourself and for the people around you. Summit has purchased a supply of adult and youth-sized KN95 masks, and we can provide those to people who show up with inadequate masks when we do have an in-person component to our worship services. And vaccinations. For indoor events, vaccinations, including boosters, will be required. Some congregations in San Diego, like First Church, are not requiring vaccinations, but they have the luxury of meeting outside. So since we are trying to meet indoors, we are going to be requiring vaccinations. But because we are a covenantal community, trust is essential to how we are together, to how we behave with one another. So we are not going to be checking vaccine cards. We're going to rely on the honor system for compliance with this rule. Now, we know from the survey that we had a few weeks ago that relying on the honor system might reduce our attendance in person on a Sunday, because a lot of people said they weren't quite comfortable with that. That is something that we will live with, because it seems more important that we base our community on covenant and trust. And again, these requirements are based on balancing risks to individuals, to the Summit community, and to the wider community. But we do have accommodations for unvaccinated people. We are arranging to have some seating and a sound system set up in the greeting garden so that unvaccinated people, and anyone actually who does not want to be indoors, can attend Sunday services in person by sitting outdoors in the greeting garden. And, of course, we will continue to have online services as an option for everyone. So there's a lot to digest here. And we understand that no one is going to be completely satisfied with all of the decisions that we've made. That's a part of living in a community where we have to balance competing interests and different opinions. No one is going to be 100% happy. And so on January 23rd, in our community gathering after the Sunday service, there will be a chance for people to ask questions of the task force and the board, and just to say something about how this slow-moving trauma of the pandemic has affected them. Of course, today in the community gathering, you can ask questions of me, but in 2 weeks, we'll have something a little more formal where the board and members of the task force will be available as well. So here we are. It's been almost 2 years, and we are all exhausted. So I would like to remind you, I would like to ask you to give some grace to other people. We are frazzled, we are tired, and save some grace for yourself as well. We also understand that not seeing each other in person is affecting our sense of community. So starting next month, we will be organizing monthly outdoor meetups so that we can at least see each other in person, even if we have to keep our distances. We had hoped to start these meetups next week, but given the fact that our case rates are in a vertical line going up, we thought maybe it would be wise to wait until February to see if things have calmed down a little bit. And, like for the optimistic future, when the COVID Act Now website shows that the risk in San Diego County is low, when it's down to their green level, we expect that that will be enough for us to roll back these protocols and restrictions. Things are fluid though, so we might have to jiggle that a little bit when the time comes, but that is what we expect at this moment. And we hope, we pray that that day will come soon. But I'd like you to remember, to reflect, to consider that whatever